The knock came from inside the closet, and my phone insisted it was 1:11 a.m. The building was new enough to smell like primer and cheap pine, old enough to have a death or two folded into its paperwork. I lay there counting the seconds between the knocks, the way you time lightning. 3, then 5, then a long inhale of silence that felt like the moment before a needle touches skin. I told myself pipes move, wood settles, rats are little carpenters. I told myself anything that would let me keep the lights off. But the third knock wasn't a hollow apartment noise. It carried weight, like a knuckle pressed through paint. When I opened the closet, my breath grazed cold drywall. There was a seam on the back panel that didn't match the others, an almost rectangle, paint rolled thick along the edges, as if someone had hidden a door and then changed their mind. I pressed my ear against it. The wall hummed, faintly, like an elevator paused between floors. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was nothing, but the building convinced me otherwise. In the lobby, a laminated evacuation map listed floors 1 through 12. The elevator car only offered 1 through 3, then 5 through 12. The missing 4 stared at me, a mouth without teeth. "We don't label 4, the leasing manager said when I asked. "Superstition, safer." She smiled like a security camera. That night, the knocks returned. I filmed them. The video saved as 1:11, 1:16, 1:23. Like I'd skipped minutes I swear I stared through. I found a maintenance tag taped under the hall baseboard, the kind workers forget when they're rushing. Scrawled in pencil, "Access key for 404, return to shop." No name, no date, number 404 on any lease. The tag dangled a brass key the size of an apology. I set it on the counter and tried to sleep with the lamp on, but light makes better shadows. At 1:58, the closet breathed. I watched the paint along the seam tense and relax, like someone testing how much pressure it would take to push through. At 2 o'clock, the knocks stopped. A whisper replaced them. My name, precise, like the way bank tellers say it. Aria. It wasn't mimicking me, it knew me. Somewhere in the building, an intercom clicked, though I'd never seen speakers. A soft tone, the kind used for fire drills, threaded the air. I held the key because empty hands felt like a mistake. The seam was as thin as a promise. I pressed the brass into paint the way you press a question into the wrong mouth. It found something that turned. On the other side of the wall, closer than breath, my own voice whispered, "Don't." I opened anyway because you don't disobey yourself unless you're desperate. The paint surrendered with a sigh, revealing a corridor no wider than a rib. It smelled like wet concrete, and lilacs left too long in a vase. The floor sloped slightly downward as if memory were heavier than air. The corridor didn't lead to a room so much as to an older version of my apartment. Same layout, same windows, except the view was wrong. The city outside looked hung on a wire, the skyline an outline, like someone had drawn Los Angeles from memory and missed a few buildings. My framed photos were present but out of sequence, their timestamps 5 minutes into the future. In one, I was lifting my phone. In another, I was turning toward the closet. An intercom rasped, "Attention residents of floors 3, 10, and 44, the numbers braided together. Due to the second maintenance midnight, thresholds may misalign. The word midnight hung like a hazard. My building had one midnight. This place had at least 2. On the kitchen island lay mail addressed to me at an apartment number I didn't rent. 404. Postmarked processing. No stamp, just a rubbery red word. Between the envelopes lay a child's drawing, waxy crayon. 2 elevators attached by a rope, one pulling the other. A smiley face stood in the elevator without a door. A footstep behind me, small, deliberate. I turned to see a boy around 8, barefoot, hair damp like he'd just come in from sprinkler rain. He carried a plastic toy phone to his ear and didn't look at me when he spoke. "They moved us upstairs last week," he said into the toy. "The hallways here don't like to be empty." "Where are your parents?" I asked. His eyes slid past mine to the corridor. "There aren't parents on 4. Only people who forgot to leave and people who remembered too late. He slipped a paper wristband off, hospital blue, with a name I recognized, mine. He handed it back like a library book overdue. I ran, back through the not closet door, into my correct air. I shut the seam and pressed all my weight against paint that was suddenly nothing but skin. My phone lit, 1:11 a.m. again. The app icons jittered, rearranging themselves like they wanted a better escape route. In the hallway, the exit sign flickered, then steadied, except the little white running man now pointed toward a stairwell I'd never noticed. A new sign hung there, glossy fresh, to 404 right-pointing arrow, the arrow aimed directly at my bedroom. The building sang low through the vents. Not music, more like wind tuned by a bruised throat. I stuck the key in the freezer because everywhere else felt too warm, too persuadable. Rulemaking is what people do when they're scared. No thresholds after 1:30, mirrors face down, peephole covered with tape. I recorded voice memos as if testimony could anchor me to one version of night. At 12:57 the intercom clicked alive with static. "Maintenance midnight begins in 3 minutes, it said cheerfully. "Please secure doors. Do not cross during realignment." I wanted to laugh. It came out bonsai small. My phone timestamp stuttered. 12:59, 12:59, 12:59, as if time were trying to plead with itself. A thin man in a maintenance jacket appeared at my door without footsteps. Just there, like an edit. His name patch read Marquez, the letters half unpicked. His jaw clicked softly when he spoke, but his voice was kind. "First rule," he said, "count the midnights. There are 2. Between them, architecture lies." "I didn't invite you in," I said. He nodded. "That's why I'm still in the hall." He gestured to the peephole, where a faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat. "Second rule, do not look out during realignment. The building hates to be seen naked." 404, I said, daring the number out loud. "What is it?" His eyes flicked toward the closet. A storage floor that got itself declared a tenant. Buildings forget to be buildings sometimes. They collect weather and names and then they want more. He took off a glove. His hand was tattooed with little hash marks, hundreds of them like prison days. "I used to live on 12, he said. "I help new people keep their doors on." The second midnight began with a long tone that vibrated my teeth. The hallway lengthened like taffy. The doorframe shifted under my palm, taller, shorter, amused by both. Something on the other side of the peephole breathed. The tape over it bubbled. "Don't cross," Marquez repeated, and I realized I'd propped the closet seam with a baking sheet so it wouldn't stick again. The sheet scraped, moving by itself. "You can't leave doors ajar at the hinge tide." Hinge tide. I lunged for the closet, but the floor tilted a degree I didn't expect, and my knee kissed the wood. By the time I caught the seam, it was already a mouth. Cold air slid over my wrists, damp with the taste of a thunderstorm that wasn't ours. My phone buzzed, a notification from maps I hadn't opened. "Now routing to home, Unit 404. An arrow rotated, pointing behind the paint. The app had never been wrong about a coffee shop. Why start lying about a door? "Arya," came my voice again from the knot room. "You forgot something." Marquez shook his head. "Third rule, it always uses your name right." And then the building exhaled, and the brass key in my freezer rang like a tuning fork. I pushed a dresser in front of the closet. The building, insulted, made the dresser a fraction narrower. Still, it shuddered the way an animal does when it knows it'll be ridden. I wrote a message on the wall in Sharpie, "Do not open after second midnight," and woke from a doze to find the letters written in my own handwriting but with a different tiredness. Loops leave evidence. I found notes tucked in ridiculous places. Inside a sock, under the basin, taped behind a light switch. Check the peephole equals wrong move. Do not believe the girl who looks like you. Key goes back to the cold. Some had dates that were yesterday. Some had dates that were years I hadn't reached. When I finally risked the peephole at noon, safe I hoped, it showed an empty hallway with sun pooled on the carpet, except the sunlight lagged half a second behind when people passed. I recognized my neighbor's shoes, then my own again, trailing me like a shadow that learned greed. I found a stack of papers slid under my door, Notice of abatement. Deceased occupant. My name in that soft, bureaucratic gray. The leasing office had filed it last week. I was alive enough to bleed when I pinched myself, but on paper, I was an echo. My stomach turned to salt. The intercom purred. To remain a tenant, one must be counted, it said. To be counted, one must have a door. The word door sounded plural from a throat that only allowed singulars. The building wanted me registered. It wanted me filed under its extra midnight. Marquez returned with coffee in a cup that hadn't chosen a logo yet. It's bargaining, he said. A building is a stack of promises, shelter, locks, names on brass. 404 has most of that, but it lacks a person. The rule is simple. Buildings need occupants. If you return the key and close its seam before the hinge tied, it'll leave you alone. If you open after, he didn't finish. And the girl? I asked. His jaw clicked and he studied my ceiling as if exits lived up there. There will always be a version of you who didn't return the key in time. She wants your midnight. That's how 404 keeps from being alone. That night, the first midnight came early, petulant. From the seam, a voice I knew too well said, "Let me out, Aria, you left me there last time, please." The please was a hook. My throat bent around it. I slid the dresser aside an inch. The seam breathed relief, paint lifting like a scab. "Not yet," I said, bargaining with air. "I'll bring the key back. I'll finish the half-made thing and shut it the right way." Somewhere behind the wall, something smiled with my mouth. The second midnight began to count. I set the brass on my palm and felt nothing but temperature. You always imagine keys will decide for you, vibrating toward destiny like a dowsing rod. It lay dumb and heavy. I pushed into the seam before the second tone could fully bloom, the corridor accepting me like a swallowed coin. 404 had tidied up. The future photos were new again. 5 minutes ahead, showing me in positions I hadn't taken yet. On the counter sat a lease. Short, written in that forgiving landlord font. Tenancy of Unit 404. Occupant, no one. I recognized the trap. If I signed, no one would be me. "Aria," said my voice from the bedroom that wasn't mine. A mirror leaned against a wall. In it I was thinner by a headache. The other me hovered at the edge of the frame like a watermark. "Just trade with me. I'll take daylight for a while. You take nights. We share the cost." "You're not me," I said. "Not today," she agreed, and her smile almost reached my eyes. "But the building only needs a name to staple to the extra floor. It can be yours, or we can make it belong to no one." No one. The lease waited like a test you could pass by refusing to fill it out. Marquez's rules jangled in my head. Another rule, older than building, showed its face. The thing you name is the thing you can refuse. I wrote in the line with the key's sharp edge scratching through the paper so it bled confetti. Occupant. Nobody. The word felt different from no one. It wasn't a legal absence. It was a refusal with elbows. The corridor trembled. The intercom gasped a tone that sounded like laughter caught in wiring. The second midnight tolled. The seam tried to close without me, but I was faster this time. The way you are when you've been here before and refuse to keep being here. I shoved the key into whatever it turned, and the corridor tried to become a closet so quickly it pulled at my hair, my jacket, my name. "Wait," said the girl who had my mouth. I didn't. Doors serve those who serve them. For once I made the doors serve me. The wall sealed. The dresser slid back by itself with the soft scrape of relief. My phone blinked to 12:01 a.m., and then, miracle, kept going. 12:02, 12:03. Out in the actual city, sirens belonged to ambulances again, not bones. I slept with my face in daylight. Morning poured a cheap gold through the blinds, and for a few hours the only knocks were in my dreams. I almost didn't notice the envelope on the floor until the coffee cooled. Notice of reinstatement. Occupant counted. No unit number. Just my name printed clear. I made one last rule with a piece of duct tape and a stack of furniture. Never look through the peephole again. Ever. I followed it for 3 days, which is a lifetime when you're free. On the 4th night, something tapped the door, delicate as a fingernail on glass. I stood there, not breathing. The peephole, under layers of tape, pulsed faintly like a held breath. I didn't look, I promised. But the tape bubbled, and behind it, digits glowed through paper like bones through thin skin. 404. And then, soft, familiar, practiced, the knocking began. From my side,